Right, good morning from Pipers'Persuasion once more. It's the 7th of October and we're moving into the second one of the autumn interviews. This morning we're out in sunny Steps, just north of Glasgow. And we are again interviewing an army person, Stuart Samson, retired captain, British Army. And he was pipe major in the Gordon Highlanders before going on and reaching the post of director of the Army Piping School. What was it again?
The Army School of Bagpipe Music.
And Highland Drumming. What a mouthful. But we'll get it properly from Stuart later on. One needs a cue when you're going for half an hour. It's like on Shots and Dyke Head with a big long name in front of it, advertising their tartan and all this. Anyway, enough of that. Stuart is very, very interesting in as much as, besides having that post in the army, teaching army piping, he also is a prolific composer of bagpipe music, and he indeed went on to use his organisational skills with the Edinburgh Tattoo and tattoos on the continent. Where? Just keep watching and you'll find out. Meanwhile, just relax and enjoy the interview of Stuart Samson. Thank you. Stuart, thanks very much for coming along, allowing us to come along to your house in Steps for this interview for Pipers'Persuasion. We're just trying to get a wee bit of history and a wee bit of knowledge from you about piping, how tunes should be played in your view. And it's very interesting to people around the world, the Pacific, South America, Belgium, wherever. And there's lots of these folk do watch in North America, big fans as well. So we're not just speaking to the full-blown pipers here. We'll speak to people who are interested even from a beginner's point of view how to tackle stuff, as well as the wee finesse later on, tips for pipers. But we also look for a wee bit of history. So let's just get a handle on Stuart Samson right away, and we'll talk about your organisational skills. First, you retired from the army, I understand, 2008?
That's right, yeah.
And just before that, you organised the Edinburgh Tattoo at Edinburgh Castle. So what was the full title of that event, if you like?
Well, it's the Edinburgh Military Tattoo, but recently, I think 2 years ago, the name got changed to the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo.
Okay.
Myself, my involvement as the director of the Mass Pipes and Drums went in tandem with my job as the director of Army Bagpipe Music and Highland Drumming. That was part of my responsibility. So during my tenure, I was responsible for organising the Mass Pipes and Drums display for that event.
Yeah. And did you have lots of people helping you with that, or preparing the event? What was the sort of organisation?
The Mass Pipes and Drums really was up to myself and my assistant, who had been the senior pipe major in the army. And also I would use the senior drum major in the army to look after the drumming aspect of the Mass Pipes and Drums. So really just the three of us.
Do the three of you send out invitations to the participants, or what happens?
No, the Edinburgh Tattoo office themselves, they sort of source the bands with advice from myself, or the director of Army Bagpipe Music.
So you make suggestions and they weigh up your suggestions and contact the people concerned. Do you, besides organising or making the suggestions about the piping and the drumming aspect, did you have any input in the other acts, if you like, in the tattoo?
Only maybe if it was piping in the finale, you would be involved in that, and also with sometimes with arrangements of the dancing music.
So you wouldn't be contacting the Nepalese gunners or anything like that?
No.
So Who organised that then? Who did that aspect of it?
Well, there'd be two sort of principal directors on the tattoo. There'd be the principal director of music for really everything for that year,
Yeah.
and that would change every year depending on. It would usually be the senior officer or director from the senior band. For example, if it was the Royal Marines were there one year, it tends to be a three-way cycle. One year it'll be the Royal Marines, the next year it will be like maybe the Foot Guards, the Scots Guards or the Coldstream Guards or one of the Guards bands, or it could be the Royal Air Force. So you've got the Army, Navy, Air Force sort of three-way cycle. And it'll be the senior director from each of these elements that will become the director for that year.
So are they the ones that had they look at the total input, the total programme then?
The total musical programme to us when everybody's sort of playing together, but then there's individual acts.
Aye, that's what I'm trying to get at. Who brings these people in?
The producer of the Edinburgh Multi-Tattoo.
Who's he?
At the moment now, it's Brigadier David Alfrey, who's the current producer. When I was the director, it was Brigadier Mel Jameson, and also I worked under General Ewan Loudon as well. So, and it's their responsibility to look for acts. And they go looking for them. They travel all over.
They'll contact
and
people all over the world.
There's also acts that will get in touch with the tattoo
of
as
course,
well. They would wish to play.
Maybe played another tattoo last year somewhere in the world, and somebody's reported favourably on them. So, as all that administration contained, obviously in Edinburgh, but whereabouts in Edinburgh? Is it the barracks, or is it Edinburgh Castle, or is it offices within Edinburgh?
Well, the Royal Edinburgh Tattoo office is just next to Waverley Station in Market Street. That's where their office is, and they've also got their shop, a shop there, and they've also got another shop located up just as you go on to the Esplanade at Edinburgh Castle.
So is this for the merchandise then?
Merchandise, and tourists can go in there and buy tickets. And
I see, yeah. How big a staff in that? Is it quite a big staff, or is it a small operation though?
It's a reasonable amount of staff. I couldn't say exactly off
but it's
But it's
and I suppose when you finish one tattoo, you're just starting to plan the next one.
Yeah, for them it's a full-time. It's very much a full-time job.
It's like Forth Road Bridge.
Yeah.
Continue painting.
Yes. Well, they'll be thinking about. They're probably thinking maybe 2-3 years in advance. You know, as far as the acts coming to perform.
They've got to book them well in advance.
Yeah.
And, for the casual viewer again, from other parts of the world, how long does a tattoo go on for?
It's 3.5 weeks. It's 25 performances, and I think on a Saturday evening it's a double performance, so it's quite a.
And they're always evening performances.
Yes.
What happens if it's inclement weather?
It's inclement weather.
You still do it?
It never stops. If it's raining, you get wet. The audience are given sort of waterproofs to put on. And they sit there, shoulder to shoulder, you know.
And just suffer it.
It's amazing sometimes that some of the best audiences are when it's raining, because they really appreciate that the cast is out there performing for them in bad weather.
Yeah.
So they really appreciate that.
How do the Highland dancers and people organise that? Is it safe enough for them to dance when?
It can be difficult at times if it's raining. You know, they've got to try and, what would you say, maybe not go 100% for it when they're dancing, and because it is slippy, and it does happen. You'll see people
going over on their ankle or something like that. But that's life, eh?
And there's a slope as well. The Esplanade's not flat. There's actually quite a hill there. You don't see that on the television.
There is a gradient.
I
don't know, 5% or something.
I don't know what it is, but it is quite.
It's steep
when you
enough.
march down, it's great. You count the mats and you go back up, then you realise how steep it is, and it's quite difficult then to to keep straight lines left to right when you're marching up and down, because of the hill, you've got to take that into account.
Is this part of your direction then to the mass bands? Do you make up the programme of tunes?
Yes, I was always given pretty much a free hand as far as choosing the tunes, but obviously, you know, you run it by the producer first and saying, I've got this idea, that idea, and they might have a little suggestion of a tune here and there. Put it together, and then you work out, is there any theme?
Well, that's it. Yeah, I was wondering about that.
If there's a theme, then that sometimes links you on to being able to choose tunes
going on that theme.
Yeah. And also we tend to do a picture, a formation with the mass pipes and drums.
Yeah. And
if there's a theme, that helps as well. For 1 year, it was a nautical theme to celebrate the Battle of Trafalgar.
Yeah.
So it was the Royal Marines who was there, and it was all in the Navy, and so we picked a lot of sort of tunes like Jig Ahoy, Jimmy Tweedy's Sea Legs,
the hornpipes,
and tunes like that. And then we did a formation of a big anchor. And I wasn't sure how it was going to look, but it looked actually fantastic with the mass pipes and drums. So it's something I really like doing, is putting the bands into formation. But you only get something like two to three parts of a tune to get into that formation, so it's got to be done very, very quickly.
And you've got to make sure everybody's sober so they remember where they're going.
They're always sober.
Unlike maybe 40 years ago, That's a different story entirely.
No, they're very, very professional.
No, but seriously though, how do you go about setting up the sound? That must be a problem for so many pipers engaged in this event. So what's your plan there about setting up sound?
Well, you give them a guide at the start to choose a pitch, you know, and then you hope the bands then arrive roughly maybe +1 or -1.
So you've got a meter reading so many megahertz or something like that.
Meter reading. The quality of the bands will vary. You know, you might have you'd be lucky enough to have a top grade 2 band, and you might have a sort of strong grade 4 band. So you have got a range of standards there. But because you've got large numbers, there is a certain amount of safety, I would say, with large numbers, because you'll get an overall sound regardless.
Yeah. It masks the odd one or two.
Well, if somebody's pipes, because even just trying to keep one set of bagpipes going, they change with the temperature, and
especially if it's a wet night too.
Moisture, so all of a sudden your F maybe starts double toning because all of a sudden your pipes have got wet. So that can be. Things like that can be masked. However, you wouldn't be able to mask that if there was only 10 pipers playing.
What happens about the chanters? Are they all playing the same type, or did you just turn up with different types of chanters?
All have different types of chanters. The hard thing really is you do a tune-up before the show.
Yeah. And
then you stop tuning up half an hour before the show starts. So the pipes is actually not been played for half an hour.
You wouldn't get away with that in the gold medal at Oban.
So that's the sort of challenge. You've got to sort of aim off as well by saying, well, you get the drones tuned to an overall sound, and you maybe tune them slightly flatter to say, well, tune them at that pitch, and you might tune them when you listen to your chanter, it's slightly off. But you're allowing for your pipes to be cooling down.
That's right.
And then you can all come on, so it's a little
bit.
They
can come back up again within a few bars.
It's a trial and error thing, just trying to get it right. You know,
but over 25 shows too. I mean, the first few shows it might be fine, but you've got to keep on top of new reads and this, that, and the next thing. It's a nightmare, is it not? But of course, you've got individual pipe majors, haven't you?
Oh yes, each band's got their own pipe major, and then you've got to rely on the pipe majors to help
look after
their own band. And it's all about preparation and looking after your instruments. So. They are going to get wet, so you say, well, make sure the pipers dry their pipes off every night before they go away out and enjoy themselves in Edinburgh.
Exactly. It's, as you say, you've got to be professional about the whole thing, and It's a marathon, really. It's not just one event, going out to play at one competition. They've got to do this 25 nights in a row.
Yeah, and the weather is very changeable in temperature. You know, it can really fluctuate quite a lot.
You begin at, was it second week in August?
Sometimes it's the first week in August.
And by the end of August, there's a slight chill in the atmosphere as well, and it's getting darker earlier and everything else, so the instrument will change accordingly. And the conditions will change. That's interesting. So, we'll maybe come back to tattoo later on, in respect of tunes and one thing and another, but I think just for the information of a viewer, where were you born and how did you start piping again?
Well, I was born in Lawrence-Skirk, which is about 30 miles south of Aberdeen. And it was 8 years, I was 8 years old when I took up the practice chanter. And that was my cousin, Brian Burse is his name. He played the pipes. And he also played the fiddle and played the piano. He was quite a talented musician. And I thought, well, I quite like the sound of the pipes. I'll give the pipes a go. Music's in my family. You know, my mother dabbled a little bit in the piano. My sister's a piano player and went on to become a music teacher. And going back in my history, my family tree, there's a lot of sort of famous fiddlers from the northeast. The Hardys and the Dickies, quite famous fiddlers. Yeah. So the music was sort of there, and I decided that the pipes was going to be for me.
So were you the first piper in the family then?
I think there might have been maybe other pipers going way back, but mainly fiddlers.
Aye.
But no pipers of sort of any note, you know, competitors or pipe majors.
Did you find that later in life that the fiddle music and that type of music influenced your own playing of tunes, or was it more that influenced the composition of your music, or both? Maybe.
I mean, there's certainly a difference between the music from the northeast and the west coast.
Absolutely.
There's definitely.
Maybe you describe a difference for the viewer.
Well, I would have been brought up because I listened to it. I mean, I would go to my grandmother's house, you know, as a small boy, and they're listening to the records, you know, the fiddle music, and sometimes you know, more fiddle music or whatever, but it's ground into you. You listen to that music all the time. Yeah. And subconsciously you're maybe taking in that style, you know, just what comes very much in here. And I suppose when I started composing, that's where I was coming out with things, and then I started to realise this is a bit different. But it was different only on the way that it was very much northeast.
Is it a rounder style?
It's
more of a flow to it.
It's a rounder style, especially in the strathspey, because it's the slow strathspey.
Aye.
You know, where you can, it allows you to put in the extra notes in the runs, 4-note runs, 5-note runs.
Okay.
Something that's not very traditional in piping to play.
It's just a 3-note runs. The west coast.
I like to sometimes put in the 4-note run. But you've obviously got to tune a little bit, sort of slow it down a little.
Down a bit, yeah.
I mean, but there is, going back in time, there've been quite a few pipers playing 4-note runs. Maybe even 5-note runs. Yeah. But it's a thing that you would certainly not do it in a competition.
Aye. And so, to be slightly more specific, how would you describe the West Coast playing?
Well, I think it's maybe to do with an expression thing. Really, I mean, when I got taught, I was taught, once I got to a certain standard and I was competing, I went to Jerry McGregor for lessons, and being a former pipe major and Gordon Helders and Walter Drysdale, and they, although one was so they're both from the East Coast, but one further north and Walter sort of a bit further south, they had pretty much the same ideas on how they would express their music. Very much the offbeat, you know, very much the pulse beat within the beat was that they locked into.
Yeah.
And phrasing, showing the ends of the phrases. And I think maybe the West Coast, maybe sort of the expressing music slightly different, big pointing, very much on the strong.
Is there any demonstration given in the practice chanters, or is that difficult?
It's quite difficult for me to sort of do it off the top.
Yeah.
I mean, I could certainly demonstrate the way that I sort of was taught, but for me to demonstrate the West Coast,
Right, the West Coast is...
they would stretch out certain notes, maybe where we, for the East Coast style, you're thinking more about the sort of the offbeat. The danger about the offbeat thing, and people will mention it, if you don't get it right, you can end up sounding a bit like you know, the accordion player with the valve can
so
offbeat, offbeat.
If you, is it possible to use Jimmy Shand and Bobby McLeod as typical examples of what you're talking about?
That could be, yes.
Because you know, it's hard to put your finger on, but Bobby McLeod's accordion music, terrific as it was far different from the flowing Jimmy Shand style, and their music was totally different.
Yeah.
Both Scottish, but
yes.
so, well, did you ever have discussions like that with your family?
Well, you mentioned Jimmy Shand. Actually, I've been. I actually woke up in Jimmy Shand's house once on the way back from a competition when I was a kid.
Aye.
I was playing in Edinburgh, and my teacher at that time, a person called Pipe Major Norman MacLeod, he ran the Montrose Pipe Band, and he was very good to me and took me to all these competitions. And one time I coming back from this competition in Edinburgh, and I fell asleep in the car, and then woke up and I arrived at his house, and it was Jimmy Shand's house, you see, and they were quite pally, you see, so that was quite a thing, you know, and he got the accordion out and played a few tunes. But the style, this offbeat thing, you know, that's like Jimmy McGregor was probably one fantastic march player, you know, won a lot of prizes, and he played in that sort of very much the swing, but the upbeat.
Is it possible to play a tune to demonstrate that style?
He would play very much, you know, concentrating on the offbeat.
Yeah.
And then he would put his own mark in it by stretching the odd note here and there, which you've got to do, because if you don't, then it becomes very sort of round. So you've got to, it's
that's a trap to avoid, but having said that, you're getting the flow into the music all the time.
It's got lift to it.
And really the music's produced by the flow, isn't it? Rather than the staccato.
Well, then you see, then I went to Walter Drysdale for lessons, and he then took that to an extra dimension for me. He would say, that's all very good, the offbeats, yes, that's what I do, but you want to think about maybe pushing out the ends of the phrases of the tunes. And I said, well, so that'll be 2-bar phrases in Walter. Oh no, 1-bar phrases. So and I always thought, well, you know, that everybody thinks of 2/4 marches as 2-bar phrases. And by this time I was you know, in my late 20s, maybe even 30, you know, and I'm getting sort of, because you're learning all the time, you see.
Yes, absolutely.
And Walter's saying, well, why don't you think about this? So you're very much beat, offbeat, and then you've got to pause the tune a little bit to create this extra dimension. So Walter's take on it would be more like this.
more of phrasing.
Yeah, and he's playing one bar phrases and he just stretches it. So you've got that one and two and, one and two and the second and of each bar at the end of the phrase is just stretching that, making sure that you're not going to jump too early into the next phrase.
Okay.
I said to Walter, I says, it sounds very simple. And he says, well, it is simple, but to actually do it and get it into execute it takes a little bit of getting used to.
Aye.
But once you get used to it, and then it becomes, well, for me, I find it natural now.
So do you prefer the latter example?
Because it's added just a little extra dimension to it, and I really think it just does break it up.
And you feel it brings the music out?
For me, it does.
Uh-huh.
I think it made me feel for the first time that I could understand what I was trying to play, and maybe before it was actually, playing a march and then the next time you play the march again and try it slightly different. It gave me something to really concentrate on and feel as if I was playing it, well.
What about Jimmy McGregor? How did he influence your playing?
Very much so. Great teacher. A real joy. He was really, taught me a lot. In fact, when I won the silver medal, in Oban, I was going to Jimmy for lessons during that time.
Was he your Pembroke man, if you like?
Well, he was everything, light music and Pembroke.
Aye, he was a great all-rounder.
And I used to go up there and, quite a lot, visit his house.
Where was that?
That was in Blairgowrie.
Okay.
When I first started to go to him, he was in a cottage in Glenalmond.
Uh-huh.
When he was just as he was about to retire from teaching from Glenalmond College.
Aye.
Then he moved to Blairgowrie.
What was his background in piping, Jimmy McGregor?
Well, he was pipe major the 5th, 6th Gordons.
Okay.
And then he was a sort of a gillie.
Uh-huh.
So he spent a lot of time out in various estates.
Did he?
Moving around.
And did he pipe for the people while he was gilling as well?
Yeah, and he was gilling up me, and he was up with Bob Nicol and Bob Brown and Balmoral for a while.
Aye, so he'd pick up all the Pembroke from them.
Yeah, it was very much in his Pembroke, he would explain a lot of things about Nicol and Brown. What
tunes did you get from Jimmy? I know you get many, but are there any sort of highlighted tunes that are really popular with you to this day, for instance?
Yeah, well, I learned, I remember learning, some of the first tunes he took me through was like Captain McDougall, Kiss the King's Hand, Battle Doll Dern.
How did he play Kiss the King's Hand?
He played it sort of, he plays long cadences in the tune. He just played quite straight actually. You
want to give us a wee bit? It's a lovely flow to that, isn't it?
And there's other styles. You'll hear people going dee-do, yabra, and bra. They'll sort of mix it up a little bit.
Yes.
And I quite like that as well. It's not. I'm not just totally one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And Pembroke.
That's what makes it interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what book would you find that setting in?
Well, most of the tunes I sort of just take from the Pembroke Society.
Pembroke Society
but
collection.
You don't actually end up, in many cases, playing the tune as per the note values. So it's very, very difficult to write the note values down.
Could maybe expand on that theme again for the viewer that's not just terribly conversant with the Pembroke?
Well, Pembroke being such old music, when it, in the 1500s, 1600s, there was no staff notation, so everything was passed on by singing in the cantorach. And everything was handed down by that. So and even people when they're composing these tunes, you know, they're not writing it down, so it's all just passed on by mouth.
Yeah.
And when you sing something, you know, you become, if you're really confident with it, you can stretch notes and you can do light and shade with your voice. And that's something that you can't really do on the pipes, you know, you can't change the volume.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all down to sort of how you try to glide from one note to the next and create that sort of, that feeling. But trying to write that down, you know, it's very, very difficult to structure it into a time signature. So sometimes when you read, or when I read a piece of music, maybe not so much now, but when I was, you know, when I was less experienced, you look at a tune, you go, I'm not sure about that. But then you go and speak to your teacher and say, could you take me through this particular tune? And then you would play it, and then they would demonstrate how it goes, and you say, oh, I really like that. But it's not even close to what's written timing wise. Yes. On the manuscript.
The notes are on the manuscript, but the timing as put down in the manuscript is not necessarily what your teachers are trying to give you.
So although we're using manuscripts, in a slight way, we're still teaching by mouth.
Aye, and that's probably a good thing too. And Jim McGregor, he would learn these tunes from Nicoll and Brown and pass it on to you.
He said to me, you know, this is the way I got it from Nicoll and Brown, but he would have changed it slightly.
What about memory over the centuries and over the decades and all the rest of it? And that must be a big factor.
Yeah, there's bound to be change. There's bound to be variances.
Aye.
You would think.
You wonder about that because although McGregor, intelligent guy and a good piper and all the rest, does he accurately 100% remember every tune?
Exactly.
You know, and in fact, the Nicoll and the Brown is partners, right, in piping. Did they remember accurately from the people they got it from and so on, right down back along a historical line? It's a difficulty.
But they might, even if they didn't, they might have thought that they took it on accurately, but even if they did or didn't, they would put their own mark on it anyway. They would actually, once you start playing these tunes, they would slightly, to suit their own playing, might decide to, I quite like stretching that note maybe a little bit longer or shorter, or doing something, and before you know where you are, there's going to be a little change.
So perhaps it's not the historical perspective, really, it's the musical performance that you should be looking at, rather than how somebody played it 200 years ago. You should be thinking about how best to draw out the music from this manuscript, if you like.
Yeah, I believe if it feels right,
it
probably is right, or certainly if it feels right, it's right for you. You know, whether somebody else likes that, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. But the music, the competitions drives a lot of how we play things. I mean, when I was didn't have any experience at all in P-Rock, first started out, and you would maybe get your teacher would sing it for you or play it on the practice chanter, and I found it really difficult to try and play along with that, because I'd feel, oh, I want to come off that note early, or I want to hold that note longer, and it really frustrated me that I couldn't. And now when I look back, I worried that I couldn't play it exactly the same. You don't want to play it exactly the same.
No.
You know, as long as it's within the parameters of being, you know, pretty close.
And you've got to be consistent.
But you've put your own style on it, without going away off completely away in a different direction. The tune still sounds pretty much the same, but you're putting your own feeling onto it. With it's all to do with subtle touches. And how you balance everything out throughout the tune.
What kind of instrument were you playing?
I've played various pipes.
Aye, but at that time in your earlier life?
Probably I was playing a set of centres, pipes that I got left to me by my teacher, Norman MacLeod. They were a nice set of pipes, but very, very difficult to get going. But I did, they were okay, I quite liked them. But then I got a set of Glens. That would have been in the mid to late 80s.
Glen, is that Grove Street in Edinburgh?
Well, I got them second hand. And again, well, they were good pipes for me. I got these pipes and I won a silver medal the next year, and I played them for 20 years around the competitions. But again, they were very, very hard.
What did you play in the silver medal?
I played McFarlane's Gathering.
And
I played Black Donald's March. There was 60 competitors that year, the two groups of 30. And the Garcia Gathering was over 3 days.
Okay.
They did that sort of experiment.
Yeah.
And then the best 6 from each group went through and you played the next day in the final.
How do you play the Black Donald, the high A variation?
It's been a while since I played Black Donald, but again, that tune, I played
no,
it.
There's the short high A or the long one, you know, the T, E, A, T, O, a to, he, to, he,
first way they sung it. Da, and do, and ti, and do.
That's the most common way of playing, isn't it?
I must admit that there's quite a few different ways of playing that tune. You know, some people play ti, and long, which I was taught, but other people play ti, and ti, which I quite like as well. You know, it's, and I hear people playing, and now that I'm teaching, you know, at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, you know, you're teaching all the students, you know, the degree course, and I'm not teaching them like this is the way you will play it, because they're not private pupils, they're on a course. So you're saying this, you might hear it played this way, you might hear it played that way, so I've got to try and find out, you know, all the different styles, which is good for me because it's a good education for myself. And you let them go and choose, you know. And I've seen me looking at other versions and thinking, actually I quite like that. And then you start playing that style for maybe a while, and then you'll revert back to what you played before.
But it can be a wee bit confusing the old brain, you know, because you're a big enough job memorising the tunes without changing the style halfway through your life again, you know.
It's quite nice.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's got a mention here about Bob Winus.
Yes.
How did he figure in your earlier life?
Well, Bob was, he stayed in Longskirk. And when I first met Bob, he must have been in his late 70s, maybe early 80s. And he'd been a piper in the Gordon Highlanders, in the drums and pipes. And I started. And because I didn't think there was any other pipers in Longskirk at the time, he sort of took a shine to me, and so he sort of went down to his house and, you know, maybe once a week and play a few tunes for him, and he just gave me a few pointers, and although I had my teacher in Montrose, but you know, Bob, as far as giving me influence of where I wanted to take my life, probably played a big part for me joining the military, you know, so that he planted that seed that maybe I wanted to think about being an army piper.
Which is a perfect cue, which was my next question. When you joined the army and why the Gordon Highlanders?
Well, 78, I joined the army, and another influence for me was Pipe Major Angus MacDonald. Seeing Big Angus at the competitions, and the Scots Guards book, you know, the photographs. You know, and I did think about, you know, you're thinking, well, which regiment will I join? And you know, and I thought about the Gordons, and I thought about the Queen's Own Highlanders. My father had been a Queen's Own Cameron Highlander. In national service. Not a piper, just a soldier. And in the Scots Guards, and it was the uniform, you know, the feather bonnet and everything, and I thought, I could just see myself, you know, really being in the Guards. You
Aye.
know. So what happened was somebody from the Scots Guards came and seen me and said, oh yes, we need to get you signed up. So I was sent up to Aberdeen to the recruiting office and got my medical and that, and then was told, sorry son, you're too small to get into the Scots Guards. I was only 5'3" when I joined the army.
At what age were you?
I was 15 and 10 months.
Aye, okay.
So I couldn't get into the Scots Guards. So then I thought, well, okay, I'll join my local regiment.
Aye.
And in hindsight, you know, I'm glad, you know,
Aye.
that I joined the Gordons, because after all, it was my local regiment, and
Aye.
I felt very, very much, you know, attached once you got into the regiment with them.
It's your background really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And your family music and
Yeah.
everything else would go along with that.
Yeah, felt really, just fitting into the whole thing was easy. You know, I was very, very fit. You know, I did a lot of sport at school. But I was like that. There was nothing to me. Then they throw all this weight on your back, and it's all about endurance. So that was quite hard at the very beginning.
Did you do quite a bit of actual soldiering in the army?
Yes. Yeah. I was maybe told a wee bit of a sort of a, not a lie, but a sort of a, oh, you'll only do 10 weeks basic training and then you'll be doing, that's you'll be piping thereafter.
Aye.
But it didn't quite work out like that. So.
How did it work out?
Well, I did my 10 weeks basic training, which was fine, and I enjoyed it. You know, I liked that side. And then I went to the junior school of music, Scottish Division School of Piping and Drumming in Dreghorn Barracks.
Okay.
And it was a junior division, and you had a pipe platoon, a drum platoon, and a military band platoon. And I think each platoon was about 50 strong. It was really, at that time, when I joined, everything was getting really quite good in piping and drumming in the army. After having been a lean period, they were really struggling to get people to get into the army, and all of a sudden there seemed to be a real surge in people joining.
Right.
So I joined the junior school, and the pipe major at that time was a guy called Jimmy Hood with their Giles, and then he got then replaced by Ian Morrison, who came as pipe major. So I spent a bit of time with the both of them. And I was there for about 18 months at school, and then you leave the school, and then you went and did another 18 weeks adult training, soldiering, and then I joined the regiment.
So that was you, an adult at that, and you joined the army proper?
Joined the army proper, into the Gordon Hill.
But your piping must have come on us a ton with that.
The juniors.
18 months.
Yeah, the junior service, I mean, they don't have junior service anymore,
No.
but the junior service for me actually crafted my career as far as, and gave me the knowledge and the because they throw responsibility at you. I mean, I was a lance corporal in junior service after 6 weeks of signing up. So in week 6, and during my basic training, I was given a stripe, and then I went to Dreghorn, to the piping school, and then the corporal instructors and the sergeant and the pipe major, they just say, you're a lance corporal now, then you're a corporal, then there was a sergeant. Oh no, you tell them what to do. They just thought to take the back seat. You had to go and tell all your peers and that, and tell the guys you had to go and clean that floor and make sure that's done in the morning. And they really give you the responsibility, and at first it's quite demanding and difficult because, you know, that pressure's been put on you.
Yeah.
But then, and I was quite small at that time as well, and I was just starting to grow. And you're big guys, and you know, and you're sort of telling them what to do. And so you grow up. It really made you grow up very quickly. Yeah. And that grounding, then it's been so valuable to me for the rest of my career, and also now. You know,
it gives you personal discipline.
Everything that's been.
So when did you grow then?
Well, once I got to about 16 and a half, then I grew about a foot in a year.
goodness.
I could feel myself growing, and when I went to bed at night, you could feel your joints actually pain in your joints.
Aye.
The quartermaster would, every month, they would say, I need a new pair of trousers because they're getting too short.
Aye.
So it was a bit of a joke with the quartermaster.
Aye, aye. That's good, eh? The good army feeding, eh?
That's it, yeah.
Aye.
Must have been.
I think that the food wouldn't be too bad.
No, the food was pretty good.
Aye.
You know,
Aye.
you were hungry anyway because you were just
Aye.
burning off calories all the
Aye.
time because you're everywhere you go, you're running about.
Did you do a training other than you do your normal army training? What sort of training were you doing?
Depending on the role of the pipe band,
Uh-huh.
different regiments has got different roles
Yes.
for their bands. When I first joined, we were called a defence platoon, so you were just like an infantry platoon
Uh-huh.
in reserve, really, in the regiment. And then we became assault pioneers, which was a big change because then all of a sudden you're like mini engineers. So you had to go and learn about mine warfare, setting up defences, the barbed wire and laying mines, water purification, building bridges,
Uh-huh.
quite a lot of diverse things. So you had to
That's
go away. So
interesting, that.
you had to go away and do all these courses,
Uh-huh.
in watermanship, where you were, using the salt boats and stuff like that. So that I find that really interesting as well.
Absolutely.
Using all these power tools.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I liked that. And then, but a lot of the pipe bands were machine gun platoons and the sustained fire role, and then so we eventually changed to that as well. So we need to go away and do these courses.
Uh-huh.
They're very for the pipers and drummers, and that's quite demanding, because it's that role. It's the weight of the gun that
Yes.
you're carrying, and all ammunition that you've got to carry with it.
Yeah.
So you have to be really, really quite fit. And to go away in the section commanders courses for that was very, very, difficult.
So that would go hand in hand, and of course piping would take a back seat for quite a long time during these occasions.
Well, to get your promotion, you had to be qualified in your musical side,
Uh-huh.
and then you also had to be qualified in the soldier side.
Yes.
So you're being asked to do twice as much than just a
The
soldier.
normal guy, yeah.
So
Aye.
we're trying to fit it all in.
Did you take the soldiering skills abroad as distinct from the pipe band skills abroad, which we can discuss in a moment? What did you go to Germany or Ireland or what?
Yeah, I've been stationed in Germany. My first posting actually when I joined the Gordons, it was within 6 months I was in Belize
Uh-huh.
for 6 months, and all of a sudden you're in the jungle. So Bainfield, Lawrence Skirk, and then a few years later now you're in a 2-week patrol in the jungle and hardly ever see the sky. It's that was a real sort of change. But that's what I joined up for, to travel the world and see those sort of things. And so the band was playing there, doing jobs, and we're also soldiering there. But we stationed in Germany and Ireland and England and Scotland, but that's sort of the main thing. But the band travelled a lot.
Aye. So where did the band travel to?
Everywhere, really. Apart from really Australia and New Zealand was one sort of area that I never got the opportunity to go and see with the band. Although when I joined the Gordons, about 6 months before I joined, I just came back from a tour in Australia. And my whole time that I spent in the regiment, and even the Highlanders thereafter, would never got the opportunity to go to Australia. It did happen later on when I became director, but no, we travelled all over Japan. 3 times to Japan.
Well, they're difficult places, countries to go to and actually play pipes in terms of humidity or altitude or whatever.
Yeah. The hardest place that I found was when we were on tour. We did Columbia Artists tour in America, where we did about 60 odd cities tour in 10 weeks. So you're literally on the bus, off the bus, a different venue every night. And you're travelling with Greyhound coaches all over America, and some places you'll get the pipes out, that's fine, quick rehearsal. But then you go to some places, maybe you got right inland to America, and you might be quite high up, and you get the pipes out and you go, where's my high A went? You know, it's just disappeared completely. You know, but and you're thinking, well, how much do you touch your pipes? Because you're only there for one night, and then
and the next day you could be way back at sea level.
Yeah, so that was quite difficult. You know?
Did you have two chanters there then?
No, we
just had to work with it.
You just have to work with what you got.
And the audience just need to suffer it, not bet. Yeah.
That's it. But that's these things are good.
Yeah.
The family thing in the band, you know, you go away on tours and all that, it becomes very close, and you know, very sort of look out for one another. And that's something, you know, I'm sure I missed that, and I'm sure everybody in the army who's left, you know, and move on, they'll miss the sort of camaraderie between all your mates, and
absolutely
the banter with the band.
Just the day-to-day crack.
And with a slight different banter to the other platoons in the regiment as well.
Yes.
You know, a lot of the other platoons, people would come and go all the time. But the band was very much, once you're in the band,
it wasn't the same turnover.
No, the turnover was much slower.
So you get to know people better.
So even your command, when you got higher up the scale with promotion, you become a corporal and a sergeant. You're treating your soldiers a little more differently than you would maybe be a sergeant in an infantry platoon, where you'd be a little bit more aggressive.
Yes.
Say, well, in the band, because you're together and travelling all the time, so you had to get your pipers to do what you wanted to do.
So it was more to motivate them rather than just to order.
So that's where I learnt where my man management skills really came from, in a way that I try to get people to do things, but not actually in an aggressive way.
Yeah.
Which is a hard thing to do.
Well, of course it is, because it's a very positive thing that you're trying to achieve. It is difficult. Okay. So you joined the Gordon Highlanders. Were you promoted within the Gordon Highlanders before the Queen's Own that you mentioned later on in the conversation? How discuss through the ranks and the regiments?
Yeah, well, the first main thing that happened to me in the Gordons was I got put in my Pipe Major's course, and that was in 1985. And I was then a corporal by then, so 2 stripes. And the course lasted for 7.5 months, and that was in Edinburgh Castle. The director at the time was Major John Allen, and really enjoyed the course. Alistair Gillis was on the course as well, and obviously a fantastic player, and with some other really good players as well. A guy called Michael Elder, who went on to be Pipe Major of the Black Watch, and a guy called Colin Townsley, who was actually a very, very good player, who was with the RTR regiment. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed the course. Went past very, very quickly, and then once I'd finished that, I then got a post into the piping school at Milton Bridge as the pipe sergeant. So I got promoted, and once I'd done my 2 years there, I then got appointed Pipe Major of the Gordon Highlanders in 1990.
Okay.
And 1994, the regiment amalgamated with the Queen's Own Highlanders, and we became the Highlanders.
Right.
So I was lucky that I achieved my aim to be Pipe Major of the Gordons. I felt sorry for my Pipe Sergeant, who then later went on to become Pipe Major of the Highlanders, but he never actually got the chance to be Pipe Major of the Gordon Highlanders.
Were you the last Pipe Major of the Gordon Highlanders?
So I was lucky enough to be Pipe Major of my chosen regiment. Then thereafter you became part of a regiment that you had to go into. You know, it was slightly different.
Joe Wilson's pipe major of the Gordon Highlanders
Yes.
at one point. He was
Yes.
through the pipe majors course a lot earlier than yourself, obviously. As Joe was more ages with me, in fact, a couple of years older than me. I played with him in the Glasgow Police Pipe Band. Joe was famous for the Gordon Highlanders, and again a composer of music like yourself. So lots of great pipers through the Gordons.
Oh yes, without a doubt. You know, they're very proud of our history, and I'm very proud to have been pipe major. You know, it means a lot to me in my sort of piping life.
What went on? What happened with the Queen's Own or the Highlanders? Was it?
Yeah.
The Highlanders.
Well, the Queen's Own and the Gordon Highlanders amalgamated, and
Okay.
we became the regiment known as the Highlanders. And geographically, there was just like a line right across east and west and up to north. So it was like a recruiting, a geographical sort of merge.
Okay.
Really, because it'd be easier to recruit from from there up.
Yes.
And
So who was pipe major?
well, I was pipe major of the Gordons, and Alistair was pipe major of the Queen's Own Highlanders, and Alistair had just recently, at that time, been appointed pipe major of the Queen's Own Highlanders. So they thought, well, you know, I'd already done 4.5 years, and normally you do 5 years and move on. So I got posted back to the army school at Milton Bridge, and was a pipe major in charge of the school.
Whereabouts is Milton Bridge?
Milton Bridge is right next to Glencore's Barracks.
Right. Okay. Edinburgh.
Yeah, and Pennycook, yeah. And Alistair went on to become the pipe major, and Jeff Harper, who'd been my drum major in the Gordon Highlanders, he stayed on, because he only had a year left in the army. He stayed on, and because of his he was quite senior in rank, he was the sort of the overall in control of the band. And then he left, and then the drum sergeant of the Queen's Own, and then became the drum major. And then the regiment then continued, and the band was pretty strong, because we had players from Queen's Own who were very strong band, and the Gordons was a strong band as well. You know, when I left, I had 21 pipers, you know, in the Gordons, and I only had 11 pipers, you know, when I took over as pipe major. So really managed to build the band up. We really had a good band. And we did go to grade 1, you know, in 1988, when the pipe major was Billy Rugg, and I was sort of pipe sergeant in the band. We did 14 competitions that year, and we were first in pipe in every competition that we played in. And we were second in the Scottish and fourth in the Worlds.
What grade was that?
I was in grade 2.
Okay.
And never forget, we was on the ranges at Fort George, you know, doing your annual shooting test, and there was this guy running up this message saying, the message came in, you've been, the RSPBA's, you've been upgraded to grade 1. So we did it for a year and then went back down again.
Because it's very difficult. And that situation pertains to this day, that people, perfectly good bands in grade 2 getting upgraded to grade 1, they get lost, because there is a difference.
And for the army as well, if you lose somebody, you can't just replace them.
I know.
You know, so it's not like in a city band, you can
just go out, shop around.
You can't do that. You have to protect your guys and try and keep them together, and musically, and so. But to have done it was an achievement in itself. To say that we'd managed to get to grade 1.
I want to discuss with you in a second just generally your experience, and we've got Bruce Hitchens and various other folks speaking about their experiences at the Army School of Piping. But before going to that subject, just to close off the last one, you mentioned about drum majors being in charge. In the Army band, what did the drum major do actually?
Well,
because a civvy band, he just wanders about with a mace, you know. But what does the drum major do in the Army?
Well, there's two ways of looking at this. If you take the band as you first of all you're a platoon, a soldiering platoon, and in most regiments you'd have a drum major and pipe major, and whoever was the senior. So, for example, if the drum major was a colour sergeant as a drum major, and I was a sergeant as a pipe major, then the colour sergeant would be senior, so he would become the platoon commander, and I would be the platoon sergeant.
Okay.
On the soldiering side. So you've got to do all these duties. So he's the same. The drum major, and I was always a pipe sergeant in the Gordons, and Jeff would have been the platoon commander. So he was to go and do all these duties. If he was away for some reason, then I would have to step up.
You were a deputy.
Yeah, and become the platoon commander and stuff like that. Musically, then Jeff would still be the platoon commander as such, making sure that everybody's briefed on what's happening the next day. This is the time you need to be on the bus, we're going to do this job.
The logistics.
Go and do the recce's, come back and say, we're going to do this job, and then he would work the drill out. What we're going to be doing up and down, left and right, getting a circle, all this sort of stuff. But we did have to sort of do that a little bit in tandem because it was a lot of the drills to the music. So we discussed how we were going to do that, and we did come up with quite a lot of to try and do interesting marching displays, with crossovers and bomb bursts and all sorts of things. So it's visually, it's not just about the play, and it visually looks good as well. So that would be his sort of side, the drill and the sort of the day-to-day management of the band, trying to sort of free you up to go on with the sort of the musical aspect. And there was lots of jobs coming in as well, so that tied me down as a pipe major. For example, when I was pipe major in Berlin, we were getting about 4 or 5 jobs a day, coming in. We had one piper here, 2 pipers here, the band's going out tonight, and you've got to make sure that's all sorted out, so people know what time they're getting picked up and where they're going. And so there's a lot of administration involved.
So it really needs 2 or 3 people just working at all that. And so the drum major's a very, very valuable aid, apart from being in charge, soldiering wise is a fantastic aid to the pipe major, because pipe major can worry about the music, and the other guy worries, he's a band secretary if you like, do the sort of administration.
We did have a pipe band president, an officer, who would take control of some of that stuff as well, but as the years has went by and life's got a lot faster in the army, say that lot of responsibility is thrown back to the pipe major and drum major.
So the Army School of Piping, you went to, is it Glencorse Barracks as well?
Yeah, it was Milton Bridge Camp, which is right next door to Glencorse Barracks.
Describe it, what's the difference? Where's Redford Barracks come into it? Is that the overall name or what is it? Well,
in Edinburgh you've got sort of 3 main barracks. You've got Glencorse Barracks in Pennycook, which Milton Bridge Camp is blistered onto that. And then you've got Redford Barracks in Collington in Edinburgh, and that's 2 big barracks, like Redford Infantry Barracks and Redford Cavalry Barracks, which is the next door to one another. And then there's Craigie Hall Barracks, which is out on the way out to the Forth Road Bridge, South Queensferry, Kirkliston area. That's the sort of Army headquarters Scotland. That's the 3 main sort of the barracks in Edinburgh.
And the piping was situated?
Well, the Army School of Piping, as most people think of it, is Edinburgh Castle, which is no longer there, but that's where it was.
And I'd refer folk to Bruce Sitchin's interview about Pipers'Persuasion, where he took us through Edinburgh Castle and all the stages of the piping school there, and took us eventually to its current situation. But again, they don't want to have to stop this one to go back to Bruce Sitchin, so just tell us where it is,
Well, when the Army School of Piping was in the castle, it taught the pipers from courses from Class 1 level, Peterborough course and the Pipe Majors course. Then the courses below that, which was called Class 3 courses and Class 2 courses, which is for the beginners and intermediate players, they all got their courses done at Milton Bridge Camp at the Piping and Drumming Wing, and all the drumming courses got done there,
Yes, okay.
including the advanced courses.
Uh-huh.
At the same time, there was also, or just before that, there had been the School of Piping at the Guards Depot in Pirbright,
Mm-hmm.
and it ended up getting merged with the Piping and Drumming Wing in Milton Bridge Camp. And then in 1999, everything then got amalgamated. The Army School of Piping, the Piping and Drumming Wing, all came together. So all piping and drumming was then put under one roof.
And it was called,
The Army School of Bagpipe Music and Highland Drumming.
that's what I couldn't remember in the intro.
So that was then a new title, and it moved to Stuart House
Okay.
in Redford Barracks.
So it moved away from the various locations and it's now in Stuart House.
Which was a huge decision,
Yeah.
and a very controversial decision, you know, with the public, you know, because the Army School of Piping, the prestige of being in the castle,
Uh-huh.
and I can totally understand, you know, the prestige, you know, thing where people are saying, oh, it's terrible, all this history, and you know, the course has been run in the castle, and now we're in some barracks in Edinburgh.
Aye.
And by the time I took over in 2000 as the senior pipe major in the army, so that was my first
Mm-hmm.
involvement at the Army School of Bagpipe Music and Highland Drumming at Stuart House. So you're still sort of working there, and people are still under, you know, giving you the sort of their opinion, and it's terrible that the schools.
It takes years for these things to settle down.
Although, and having came through director in that at Stuart House, in hindsight, although the address and location in the castle was you know, very prestigious,
Yes.
the facilities that we had and the musical training we were able to provide
Uh-huh.
was much better, all being under one roof and being at Stuart House. The facilities that we had,
Aye.
you know, was far greater,
Yeah.
much more room.
Yes. So they're able to do more and give a wider scope of training,
well,
possibly.
it's a real hub now. Everything's under one roof.
Okay.
And another reason I think that it was probably planned to go that way, we needed safety in numbers where, for as long as you were little units here and there, defence cuts, it's all to do with budgets.
Of course it is.
So that if you can get yourself all together and
Aye.
make yourself as big as you can,
Aye.
then there's a better justification to retaining your existence
Yeah.
in Edinburgh.
So, currently you go and you're learning piping through all the stages, but there'll be other ancillary skills that they'll be teaching, such as presentation, no doubt.
Yeah, they get taught things like method of instruction, and because it's courses at different level.
Uh-huh.
It's a real.
But even how to present the music out to the
Oh
public.
yes, yeah, everything.
Then how do they go about that?
Well, again, it's at different levels. The pipe majors course, for example, you come in and they've got to learn so many tunes. You've got to try and groom them and educate them for what's going to be required of them as a pipe major. Not every single person who does the course will go on to be a pipe major, because there maybe going to be a vacancy and then their time's up or whatever. But
Do they have failure rates?
There's very rarely, because you've got to get a recommendation to come on the course.
Aye, so
you've all been
everybody will be
pre-assessed.
pretty confident about the success of this
You've got to come
individual.
through qualification courses to get onto the pipe majors course.
Aye.
So that sort of takes care of that.
Exams?
Yeah, I mean there's exams every week. You know, they've got the day written exams, history and theory, music writing. It's quite intense.
Aye.
And then
Brian Donaldson had to do a lot of his stuff for heading towards the Falklands.
Yeah.
Aye.
So it's an intense course, There's a lot to learn, and you can, then at the end you've got your playoff, the panel of judges or examiners come in, and you've got to go in and do your sort of 35, 40 minute recital.
Who are the judges? Are they civilians or is it army personnel?
Selected by the director in conjunction with the Pipers'Persuasion Society, because there's the very strong link between the Pipers'Persuasion Society and the Army School of Bagpipe Music. The Army School having sort of evolved from the Pipers'Persuasion Society, really.
Historically, yeah.
Yeah, so that link is kept by, there'll always be the somebody invited from the Pipers'Persuasion Society as one of the examiners. And then, we decide who the other examiners is going to be. Maybe somebody who's been, previous involvement with the school. But people that are prominent and have an understanding of what the students are actually going through,
How healthy is the piping in general in the army now? They don't have the same gold medalists, obviously, as Gordon Walker's, Alistair Gillis, and the people like that. And are they forced now to teach their own pipers from scratch and nurture their own pipers from the ground up? How successful is that, if that is the case?
Yeah, the facilities are in place for somebody to join the army as a beginner, and go on and have a career. The course, I can't tell you exactly how many weeks the course is, because things change. But
yes.
Certainly, I think the course was about 28 weeks long, and for a beginner, and that's purely, it's like 90% piping and drumming.
Okay.
And they've got a lot of things you've got to do, but but mainly focused on that. And at the end of that course, you produce a band. So the Stuart House will do a passing out parade with the band that's been created by these beginners. And they can maybe play about 12, 13, 14 tunes on the pipes and the drums. And then they go away to their regiments, and then they get them, they carry on their piping. It does work, because there's now people, years later it's come back. There's people now, I believe, coming on pipe majors courses who start from scratch in the army. So,
from your point of observation, you feel that it's probably successful enough, and but really that's circumstances modern day, isn't it?
Exactly. It's difficult. Time is.
Recruiting's difficult these days.
Difficult, yes. And there is a lot of operations going on in the military. So it's
a smaller army.
But that's not a deterrent for anybody who's really interested in joining the army. I mean, my advice would be, if you really are interested in joining the army and you know you're going to be a soldier and that, then there's definitely a career there for somebody who's interested to pursue that.
So you did 30 years in the army, and retired, if you like, April 2008, and you're awarded the MBE. Tell me about that, a wee paragraph about that.
Well, I'd left the army actually. I was in Inverness, I was up a ladder painting. And I got a phone call from my previous commanding officer, when I was director, and he just phoned me up to say, congratulations, you've been awarded the MBE. So somebody or some group had obviously got together and put a nomination forward. So it was quite a nice feeling to feel.
Where did you go for that?
I went to Buckingham Palace.
Enjoy it?
Yes.
Who went with you that day?
My mother went, who thinks she'd only been to England once in her whole life. And my wife Wanda.
That's terrific, eh?
So yeah, it was.
So was it presented by the Queen?
By the Queen, yes. She's very knowledgeable, she's got a real liking for the pipes,
Yes.
She's quite interested in that, and you've got to go through all the briefings and process before you get presented your medal, and you join the big queue. And
how were you dressed for it?
well, because I'd left the military, I was just dressed in a day jacket and kilt.
Aye.
So I wasn't in military uniform.
Aye.
And this person, this colonel or something, says, now the Queen will, you'll not get any longer than 30 seconds if you're lucky. The Queen will shake your hand, and then once it's finished, sort of pushes you away. You know that you're
your time's up.
Your time's up, and then you're on the way. So I went up, and I must have spoke to her for about 3 minutes. And when I walked off the equerries, and that was getting all excited, and what did she say, and why did you take so long? But she started, because you're not allowed to ask questions. You answer. You answer.
You just respond.
And she was just asking about piping, and she was quite. She was saying, I'm very happy with my Sovereign's piper, because we've chosen the current Sovereign piper, the Pipe Major Potter from the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards. And it's the first time it had been a Sovereign's piper from outside the infantry. Because it's tied to the infantry.
Yes.
And I had to sort of persuade some people that, I think, this person's worthy of being the Sovereign's piper, and she'd obviously got wind of this, and she was quite interested in the whole thing. So she was actually just saying, I'm very happy with the piper, thank you for your
recommendation.
So it's obviously well briefed, and very, very easy, to talk to.
That's terrific.
Although I have met her a few times over my.
Did you go to Balmoral?
Yeah, I played a few times in the Gillies Ball up there. Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yes. Yeah, when Pipe Major Brian McRae was the Queen's piper, I used to go up there quite a lot, because he was an ex-Gordon Islander, you see. So I used to get called up there to play from time to time.
That's fantastic. I'm going to just come away from that now and discuss your music book, a collection of compositions by Captain Retired Stuart D. Samson MBE. It's titled Land of Bens and Glens and Heroes. It's a fabulous book, great photographs, lots of army photographs, but other photographs as well. But all your own compositions?
Mainly
your own compositions, and I open the book here and I see there's a 2/4 march by titled Walter Drysdale, which you've composed in memory of the late Walter Drysdale, teacher for a number of years. 2/4 march, did you play it much after you composed it?
Well, when I composed this tune, I wanted to try and compose something that had a sort of real heavy competition 2/4 sort of feel to it. The sort of tune that Walter himself would really say, oh, that's a great tune, sort of tune that he would like to sort of play it again. With his sort of history of being a fantastic march player,
Could you play a couple of bars there?
I'll play it. I'll need to read the music, of course.
It's page 1, just after the index.
I'll try and play
any part at all.
I'll play the first part.
That's tremendous. That's a nice march, actually.
Then the big heavy third part, which is sort of like the Brigadier General Cheap,
that's
the big strong sort of big,
that's a difficult third part.
So the third part goes.
What about the cairn of the Mount? It's just page 3. What was the thinking behind that when you composed that? I see it's a prehistoric round cairn,
Yeah.
2000 BC.
Well, the two tunes in that 2 pages there, the Path to Clach na Ben and the Cairn of the Mount, they're sort of they're in tandem really, because you can, if you stand in the Cairn of the Mount, you can see the path to Clach na Ben and vice versa, and that's all sort of viewpoints not far from where I live in Lawrencekirk. If you go over the Cairn of the Mount, then you end up then in Royal Deeside, you know, so you come in down into Aboyne and up to Ballater. So that's sort of
that's your home territory.
So I just thought I would title some of the tunes from, you know, places of interest in my area where I was brought up.
And you've got, you mentioned the drum major Jeff Harper, and you've got a 3/4 march after him.
Yeah.
And a drum major Jim Clark in the next page. So 4/4 marches. What do you prefer, the 3/4s or the 4/4s?
I quite like them both.
Aye.
You know, actually, the 3/4 marches, and there's a bit of debate on this as well. And I've seen an article somewhere in a magazine, and I looked back and looked at my tunes, and I go, yes, maybe some of the 3/4s you could actually say, well, you could actually say there were 6/4s, the way the phrases are put together. You know, so it wouldn't have to definitely be a 3/4. Some you could actually write it as a 6/4, because the end of the phrase seems to be 6 beats rather than 3 beats.
Could you demonstrate that one?
Let's see there.
It's page 7.
Yeah. For example, I've looked at the page 6, the Praise of Angus, for example.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
That's 3/4, but you could say the end of the phrase is after 2 bars.
It's a nice tune, that too. It's got a nice lift to it, hasn't it? Aye.
There was a lot of tunes never made the book.
Aye, well, that's for book 2, isn't it? What about I'd see there's an interesting title, and later on we can discuss your tattoos abroad, but there you are, H.M. Congan's Guard, 150 years, 150 years, what's all that about? Norway, I see.
Well, I've been my involvement with the Edinburgh Tattoo, and HM, His Majesty's King's Guard of Norway band and drill display team perform, you know, a very big act on the Edinburgh Tattoo occasionally, and then I've met them in other tattoos as well. But during that time in Edinburgh, got sort of really friendly with them, and then it was their 150th year anniversary, and asked me if I could maybe compose a pipe tune for them.
Commemorate the occasion.
Yeah, so I had to try and come up with something that sounded a bit sort of like in their style, you know. It's
Aye. That was difficult, eh?
So that was, and then I was invited over to play at a concert, you know, in Oslo in front of the King. So, or the King Harold.
How does that tune go, a couple of bars of that?
Yeah, you've got to take into consideration this is a Norwegian sort of
Theme.
feel to ish. So. That's it.
That's nice, sir. That's really nice. And you composed a couple of tunes regarding prior to the amalgamation of Gordon Highlanders, Queen John Highlanders. And that's between Dawn and Day and Crossing the Spey.
Yep.
Did you play these tunes as a band round about that time for that occasion?
The Gordons, my band, when I was playing major, we played both these tunes. And it's on I think they brought out a CD called Cock of the North. And I think it was Band Leader Music that produced the CD, and that's the tunes, both them tunes are on there, with the band playing it. I like 9/8s, you know, I mean there's lots of great 9/8s out there, you know.
Don McLeod, who we haven't mentioned at all, you did get a wee bit of suggestion. He composed some great 9/8s as well.
He composed
Black Isle.
Lots of great tunes.
Aye.
You know, it's just he's a musical genius. Really. You know, you look at the structure of the tunes. You know, the way that the phrase, the question and answer thing going on, and you know, very very clever. You know.
Absolutely. Now, I think that Strathspeys are very very difficult for pipers to play. For some reason or other, they never seem to get into the idiom. And some would argue that it's probably the most difficult tune in terms of getting it right. It's just a view. But you came from Strathspey company, or country if you like. So we have a couple examples in your composition, page 19. Marchioness of Huntly, Hill of Garver. And then across the page, Finland MacDonald's Strathspey and One After Your Wife, Wanda, Stuart Samson. Do you want to talk about Strathspey for a second or two, and what your views are?
My views are, it's difficult to play a Strathspey. Again, it's a style thing, but I think there's a lot of confusion put in pipers' minds how they should play a Strathspey. Yeah. And this is only my personal opinion. And I'm sure there could be a huge debate on the subject. For me, it's a strong weak, medium weak thing that's the sort of the accents that puts a lot of confusion into pipers' minds. Because it's the weak, medium weak bit that really can make this whole thing sound erratic. I think that the best way for me to explain it is strong weak, medium weak is all about loud, no so loud, medium loudness and not so loud. It's how hard you hit the bass drum.
Okay.
You know? So it's like strong, weak, medium, weak. But I'm still going 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a regular beat.
Well, what about the dancer? Do you ever think about the dancer?
Well, the dancer's not going to jump higher, no so high, a little bit higher, no so high, higher. They jump the same height all the time. So it's got to have to be a regular beat.
Well, you've got to get the dancer up off the ground, haven't you?
Yeah. So I think some individuals might get a bit confused with this strong weak, medium weak. They're stretching the accent, so you get this. No, you got so you end up really.
There's no flow.
There's no flow there. It's too sort of. It's all the beats are quite strong in my opinion in Strathspey. All of them are quite strong.
So, could you pick a wee example and just from these tunes that we're talking about? Well, maybe just tell me the name of.
I'll try Finlay MacDonald's Strathspey.
Okay, right.
And Finlay I share an office with at the National Piping Centre. He's been an influence as me with his style, rubbing shoulders with him, his folk, music background, and that's gave me another sort of direction to think about, and it's been really quite interesting. So, but this Strathspey's got 4 note runs in it. What I was talking about earlier, you know, that
Aye.
Which is again a thing. It's a northeast thing.
Aye.
So.
That's different, isn't
so
it?
you can feel the sort of fiddle.
I can feel the fiddle.
You can imagine a fiddle. You can imagine a fiddle player playing that.
The influence of the have fiddlers played your tunes?
Probably not.
Or maybe they have, and
in time, I hope the music will get out there.
Of course, it's a fairly new book, and but in Stuart House 33, that's relating to the Army School of Piping there, and you've composed a reel called In Stuart House with a nice photograph down the bottom there. In particular about that tune at all?
Yes, a lot of these tunes as well has been played actually by the massed pipes and drums.
Right.
I've played this in Edinburgh, and I've also played it in Basel. And although there's some tunes in here that are quite heavy to play, there's a lot of tunes that I've deliberately not put as much doublings and embellishments in as maybe, I've left that to the performer themselves. If they want to add, if they want a bit more work into it, then that's fine. I prefer to do it that way than the other way around. You put too much work in that people can't play it.
Just leave it nice and clean.
Yeah, leave it nice and clean.
A G grace, so you want to make it a doubling or something.
If they want to make a shake or whatever, then fine. If they're good enough to do it, they'll do it anyway.
Yes.
But if you make a shake to start with, and then if people can't actually play your music, then you're not giving people the opportunity to play your music.
Yes.
It's all about the melody, and depending on your sort of capabilities will dictate how you're going to embellish that tune.
Okay. Right.
But then Stuart House is just it's a round reel. There's no pointing at all.
What about the Castle Rock Kelly? Page 36, another reel that you composed in 2004 and playing the dancing set.
Yeah.
At
quite a few groups now playing this, yeah.
How does that one go?
It's,
And of course other instruments could freely play along with that sort of open melody, can't they?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing a lot of playing myself with other instruments recently, and so that's a lot of these tunes. For example, there's a tune called The Real Deal on page 34, and I wouldn't dream of playing that on my own as a solo piper.
Okay.
It's got to have other instruments behind it.
It needs accompaniment.
Because once you get to the second and the third part, it's like the notes that I'm playing is like a counter melody for to give the other instruments to come up and say, right, you now fill that.
Yes. They take the lead.
And I played that with a full orchestra and a full string section and everything. In Basel, and for a dancing set, and when we had everything behind it, it was a great feeling,
It's a new way of composing, really, take a supplementary role in the music rather than the principal. And at the very end of the book, I've heard you playing this, I believe, and it's a beautiful tune, the Pembroke, Land of Bens and Glens, and here is the title of the book. And you've got the Urler variation 1 and the Torlur and Crinler variations. What inspired you there?
Well, I've been trying for years to compose a Pembroke.
Aye.
And also I love to compose a Pembroke, and every time I sort of tried, it just, I'm not sure, it didn't feel right. And then it was, when I was least expecting it, all of a sudden I just got this phrase. And the whole thing then, once I had the first phrase, and then I managed to get a complementary phrase to go along with it, then that was me. I knew I could then, because the structure of the tune, I would be able to build it up. And it's quite unusual in a way. I would say, yes, it is a modern style Pembroke, as far as it's no in the really classic, traditional sort of style. It's got a sort of a modern sort of twist to it. So it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea in that sense. Although I have, it's actually a primary structure Pembroke. It's not pure primary, but it's primary structure. But I just like I like the Pembroke hygiene note a lot. It's a haunting sort of note, but very, very difficult to write it on manuscript paper.
Absolutely.
And I've had to use pause marks and stuff to try and leave it to the interpretation of the performer, to how much I want to stretch these notes. I could have maybe went and took some advice, maybe how to write stuff, and checked it over with somebody else, but then I thought, well, I've written it in my way, the way I think it should be written, and whether people sort of understand it or like it or don't like it, at least I've made my mark on how I think it should be.
So,
written.
For people lifting this book up, would they be able to play this tune off the page?
Yes, but everybody would probably play it slightly different, because the pause marks is going to make you. It's how much you feel you should
put into this.
Put into that.
Which just takes you back to what you were talking about.
The more you play it, the more the tune will evolve for you.
Right.
More confident you become in stretching the note. It's amazing how much you can stretch a note in Pembroke.
Can you play the first couple of bars?
Yeah, I'll play the first line, because that then gives you an idea of the phrase.
Excellent.
And then it just builds up from there.
I had heard you playing before, and it's a tremendous tune.
It's got a melody to it, but it's in a Pembroke structure,
That's terrific, that. Well, there you are, folks. Buy the book and listen to this, and you'll learn how to play the Pembroke as the composer likes it played. So, the book's widely distributed, isn't it?
Yes, it's the main sort of dealers. And I've also got, people can get in touch with me direct. I've got a website as well, so if anybody wants a signed copy, for example, they could buy it direct from, and you just send it out signed.
Okay. So just tell us, what's the website then?
It's www.sdsamsonmusic.com.
There you are. And you can be contacted through the National Piping Centre as well. Aye.
Books on sale, National Piping Centre, College of Piping, McCallum's,
Yeah.
bagpipes, you know.
Absolutely. And just to finish off, must tell the viewers that you've taken your tattoo skills abroad and you now are in Germany and Switzerland. Tell us a wee couple of minutes about that.
Yes, well, currently, now that I'm retired from the military, I'm staying here in Steps, because I work in Glasgow teaching at the National Piping Centre for the students doing the Royal Conservatory of Scotland degree in Scottish music. So I teach the Pibroch and March to Spain Real element of that, which I really enjoy. And in addition to that, because that's sort of part-time and only university terms, so between the terms, which they get many weeks off, so
Aye.
I was asked to get involved 6 years ago now with the Basel Tattoo in Switzerland, and that started 7 years ago from scratch. They wanted to have a mass pipes and drums run along the same sort of lines as the Edinburgh multi-tattoo, but they don't have the backdrop of a castle. They've just got a barracks building,
Okay.
a caserna that they call it, and they build these stands for for 8 days. The shows run, there's 13 shows over 8 days, and it's just grew arms and legs. You know, it's got a bigger and bigger event. This year I think I had a mass pipes and drums. Oh, I got 195 pipers and drummers from all over the world to come in, and the audience love it. The difference between Edinburgh and Basel, Edinburgh is a global audience, they're from all over the world.
Right.
Basel's, they're all local, they're all from Switzerland or maybe just across the border in Germany and France. But a very, very sort of localised audience, and it's the same audience that'll come back every year.
Aye.
And tickets go on sale in December, and 120,000 tickets right across the whole of the tattoo are sold out within 24 hours.
Away.
That's it.
24 hours?
Yeah, gone. it's unbelievable.
Aye.
And it's the producer's very, very passionate, very knowledgeable about performing. He was the lead drummer and founder of Top Secret Drum Corps.
Okay.
And it was his sort of vision that he wanted to maybe start their own tattoo.
Aye.
And now they really have got something that's just got really, really huge.
Fantastic.
And because of his success and being able to build that up, then the German military got in touch with the Basel Tattoo and said, can you produce Berlin Tattoo in the O2 Arena in Berlin? So
how does that go?
we did that for the first time last year, and it's just about to happen next month again. So looking forward to that. I mean, I like working with large numbers of people in music.
Is it just the musical aspects you're looking after
Yeah,
again?
I just do the mass pipes and drums.
Okay.
I will coordinate, you know, the drill, work out what they're going to form. Last year in Basel, or this year in Basel, I did a treble clef, which is quite complicated, but it worked quite well. And the music as well. I try to make the music. For me, I'm trying to make a medley.
Aye.
And a marching set.
Okay.
It's interesting for the pipers and drummers to play, but it also hits the spot with the audience.
Yeah.
An audience only get one chance to hear the tune.
It's like competitions, isn't it?
You've really got to try and get something that's catchy, but at the same time interesting, and not too complicated, but yet complicated enough just to set a sort of a wee bit of a challenge for the pipers and drummers.
You can't have them working too hard at a tune. No. And some of the compositions in the last couple of decades have been hard work, where it's taken 6 or 8 times listen to a tune before you eventually get it. And by that time it's too late. And that's the big mistakes that bands have made in competition arenas, where the judges only hearing it for the first time, allegedly. And if it doesn't hit them, then you've missed the boat, really, haven't you? Anyway, the tunes we've heard in your book there today all hit the spot for me, Stuart, and thanks very much for your time here. Time's just gone on. I think if we've gone on much longer, it'll soon be dark, you know. Anyway, great. Thanks very much from Pipers'Persuasion for this interview, and all the best.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.